Very warm welcome to Andrew Sean Greer, who's here at our festival for the first time. Welcome, Andrew. And he'll be in conversation with Sandip Roy, who, as you all know, is a festival veteran. So a big and warm welcome to Andrew and Sandip.
The expertise of wealth management with the power of a bank.
Over to you.
Thank you, Pratiti. And Andrew, welcome to Kolkata. Welcome back.
I'm so excited to be back.
And we are very excited to have you here. Yeah, I remember reading an interview of yours where you said, when Less had come out, saying, I thought no one was going to read it, which was very liberating. Well, that didn't quite work out that way.
No, it didn't work, but it was a good way to write a book.
But now, when everybody has read it and you're embarking on a sequel, what I was interested in asking was, when you write the first character, he's all yours. You know, readers may love him, hate him, empathize with him, but that's up to them. He's all yours. But when you're writing it in a sequel, are readers now somewhat possessive about the character? Are they co-owners in a way?
That's exactly what worried me in writing it, because I didn't have the same sense of who cares, which is sometimes necessary in making any kind of work of art. I thought I had a responsibility for someone who doesn't exist. I couldn't make him do quite as many ridiculous things. I had to have some sense of dignity. Which is not an aspect he possesses as a character. So I was worried, but no one's yet complained that I destroyed him.
I was going to ask you that, whether you've had any interesting reactions to people who see him as a real person and said, how could you make him do that?
No one's done that yet, but the whole fun of writing this character is that I humiliate him as much as possible over and over. And so once you've done that, people can't complain.
Well, I mean, you have this line about the small humiliations that the character endures. And one of the things, like, for example, he grows a mustache and nobody notices. Has that happened to you?
Not everything in the book has happened to me.
This is going to be a recurring refrain. Has that happened to you?
Well, I did grow a mustache. I currently sort of have one, but you probably can't even tell. I just thought it would be funny because men are so proud of their mustaches and no one else really cares as much.
But as a writer, is that rich territory? You know, when you explore these small humiliations you're subjecting your character to?
It's actually a really nice way to go through life, to research a book, well, to research comedies in general, because you start to pay attention a lot more to your life, and things that are mostly annoying, like waiting for the luggage at the airport in Kolkata this morning, become funny once you see it as a comedian. And so I just take notes on every little thing, and life becomes much funnier and not as irritating because it's all material.
But is it funnier in the moment?
It's not as funny in the moment.
Not when the luggage is coming.
It never is, yes. But now I've gotten, it doesn't take as long for it to be funny. Usually it takes a day or two. Now it's just a few minutes.
In a few minutes. So your luggage did arrive, I hope.
Oh, well, of course it did, yes.
Of course it, well, you never know.
But I didn't put it through the scanner because I took the wrong staircase. The humor's always me. Yeah. I'm always the thing that's wrong.
So people were running after you going, sir, sir, sir.
No one ran after me. I was shocked.
Well,
I got past security.
Now, when you embarked on the sequel, were there people like your agent or even yourself kind of saying, worrying that, Andrew Sean Greer is milking less for more?
My agent specifically told me, Andy, do not write a sequel to this book. Because I said I was thinking about it, it was still in my mind, this character. She said, you can't write a sequel after a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. It's not seemly.
Seemly?
Yeah. And I'm not very seemly myself. So I tried to write a different book. I took her advice. I thought I won't write a sequel. And then the other book just turned into a book about Les. you know how it happens. It gets away from you. And I thought, if there's any advantage to winning a Pulitzer Prize, is that I can write anything I want, even if it is unseemly.
Are there other advantages to the Pulitzer Prize?
There's no disadvantage.
There's no disadvantage.
The biggest advantage is that I'm an insecure person, and in the world of writers, we often meet each other and try to figure out if our status in some way, which is very uncomfortable, and I don't worry about that anymore.
So that pecking order thing. When you,
Yeah, I don't worry about the pecking order, which means that I don't have to try to look for a famous person and meet them. I actually can just talk with other writers and not care. It's nice.
and then speaking of sequels, are there books that you really wish had sequels?
Oh my gosh. I feel like when I first was a kid and I was trying to write stories, I was always writing sequels to things
That exists.
that existed. You know, I think that's a good way to start, is to imitate sort of fan fiction. And I remember there was a book about rabbits called Watership Down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that I
Richard Adams.
Richard Adams, and which was probably the first big book I ever read. It seemed big at the time. And I wrote a sequel to it when I was 10. It was about squirrels.
Oh, so the rabbits became squirrels? So
No.
you wrote Watership Down with squirrels?
Shorter. Like 5 pages, yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading it. And then I think he wrote, I did want a sequel to that actually, but then
Yeah.
he wrote a book called Shardik, I think, which was about some ferocious wolf or dog or something
Yeah, that
like
terrified me. I never read anything again.
But the cover was scary.
Well, Watership Down was scary. I mean, it was a
like you thought it was a
bloodthirsty-
book about bunny rabbits. And
No, it was about murder and war.
Now, this book, Less is Lost, in Less, the character Arthur Less, for those of you who haven't read the book, is approaching 50 and is having a sort of identity crisis. And he resolves it by running away as far as possible, traveling around the world, you know, anything to put off the big date. In Less is Lost, Arthur is now over 50, and instead of going around the world, he's traveling across America. And in an RV, I don't know how many people know what's an RV. Will you explain what an RV is?
An RV, well, it's really like a van that has been, the inside has been taken out, and a bed has been put inside, and a little kitchen, so that you can live inside of it instead of going to a hotel.
And you yourself did a sort of cross-country trip. Was that in an RV?
Yes, I had 3 different RVs that I rented for gradually smaller. I started with a very large one that even had a bathroom inside of it, and then they got smaller and smaller until I could barely fit into the van.
Why were they shrinking?
That was all that was available. Also, I was running out of money for my trip. But I didn't know what book I wanted to write, but I knew I wanted a road trip across the United States.
Why?
Because Trump had just won the election, and I thought, and that's not who I voted for, and I thought, well, a lot of people did, and I don't understand why. Maybe I should go and meet them? And now it seems like a terrible idea, but at the time it seemed like very innocent.
And so what were the kind of adventures or misadventures that you had on your trip?
My journey is a lot longer than Arthur Less's. I spent 6 weeks going through the southern portion, the Southwest, which is cactus and deserts, and the American South, which is sort of charming, old-fashioned, racist area.
Charming racism.
And where my family is from. And my adventures were mostly going to, I had 2 rules. I could only go to small towns, not big cities. And I had to sit at the bar, if I went to a bar, and I had to sit at the counter in a restaurant and talk to people, and talk to the waiters and waitresses or the people sitting next to me. I bought beer. That was the other rule. If I was sitting at the bar, I had to buy beer for people at the bar. So people really told me everything about their lives.
That's all you need, a beer.
Apparently, yeah, a Bud Light.
Bud Light.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. But as in the book, Arthur Less constantly, he tries to fit in, but he sticks out as almost more foreign there than he is in other parts of the world. And as a gay man from a city like San Francisco, were you sticking out like a sore thumb?
I mean, the joke, I put it in the novel because I thought it was so funny. I thought I would go in disguise as a straight man so that no one would bother me.
How did you think that?
I went to one of the large stores, Walmart, where they sell everything in the world, and I bought like those shorts that American men wear with the pockets in them,
and lots of
lots and lots of pockets, and like a giant T-shirt with a country music star on it, and a baseball cap, and I thought, I'm totally in disguise. And what I found really funny was absolutely everyone knew I was gay. I would saunter into the bar, you know, and
because you crossed your
like
leg.
that,
Oh,
you know.
You did the man spreading.
I did the man spreading, and you know, put your hand on the bar. I'll have a, but I didn't order a Bud Light. I later learned that in America, straight men drink Bud Light.
What did you order?
Like a martini.
A martini. And did you hold it with your pinky
Yeah,
out?
you know, I thought James Bond orders a martini. He's pretty straight.
Well, let's hear a little bit from the book.
Sure.
And so to give us a taste of author's adventures on his road trip.
This one is, he is in the Southwest, Arizona, I think, and he's supposed to, he has your role. He's supposed to be interviewing a more famous author than myself, a very famous author, who looks like he's not showing up. And so they tell him to go on stage anyway and just read something of his own. Arthur Less hears his name or something similar announced and stumbles onto a stage that has been painted white under bright white lights so that he stands dazzled by a whiteness that offers him confused, sporadic applause, something like the last kernels bursting in a popcorn maker. The chanting has stopped for the moment. He clears his throat before the microphone. He can sense in his blindness the mass of humanity already electric with disappointment. And from the darkness comes a call. Who the hell are you? From the same darkness, a shudder of laughter. Less answers, I'm Arthur Less. Where's HHH? That's the famous writer. Mr. Mandarin is getting ready. I'm the interviewer, so they've set me out here to read something. How can it be that he has been persuaded, like those prisoners forced to saw and sand their own coffins, into fitting his own mad humiliation? He begins to sweat. All his handkerchiefs are in the green room covered in pink fluff. How happy they must be here. Oh, I should warn you, there's a very bad pun at the end of this. Really bad. I promise you we're not hiding Mr. Mandarin backstage somewhere, he says with a maddened grin. He's on his way. In the meantime, they've asked me to read from my novel, Dark Matter. The crowd begins to chant again. H, 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 H. And he feels it jackhammering his bones. Freddie, he thinks, you don't know what I go through. Perhaps it is the snow-blinding effect of the auditorium lights or the high wind sound of the crowd, but the scene shakes and blurs in Less's vision. He is standing on another stage, 40 years ago or more. The venue is smaller, the lights dimmer, but again a man is shouting to a packed house. It's his father, Lawrence Less. Bristling with sweat and decorated in fringed denim, his father moves around the stage like an earthbound anemone. He's yelling into a microphone. Less's mother is not present in this memory. There's only himself, his father, the lights, and the applause. People are being charmed. Something is being sold. What Less is doing on stage is a mystery as well. Surely it's part of his father's act, but all that remains is his father's flailing form. This is probably 6 months before the police begin their investigations, and the anemone vanishes from the scene. And from Less's life, on the lam from the law, public anemone number 1. We find our narrator, Les bellows into the microphone, and the audience quiets immediately, as if he's uttered a malediction. They're listening. Who knows why? Best not to ask. He's back in control. A tremor has taken hold of his right hand and makes the pages shake. There is no choice but to go on. We find our narrator, he repeats. His voice booms through the hall, already in motion. The interrupting roar stops him mid-sentence. It is the audience on its feet. Beside him, Les sees a shadow that appears to be of a tall man with a helmet and a lance, but of course he knows exactly who it is. H. Mandarin has appeared to save the day. There's your pen.
Have you been on either side of any encounter like this?
I've been on every single side of it. I've been definitely on your side of it, which is a lot more work than people think it is. You see that he has a list here and all of these notes in here. It takes a lot of preparation to make it seem like a really casual conversation. You know, I think that's a real talent. And sometimes the person you're talking to doesn't want to have a casual conversation at all, and that's a lot more work.
That's happened to you?
Once I was interviewing Stephen King, who was fantastic, but who was ill with the flu. He was throwing up on stage before, but he wouldn't cancel the event because his fans were there and he wanted to be there for them. So he came and he sat there and he didn't say a word for an hour and a half.
While you nervously prattled on.
And I just kept asking questions that I would say once you said in an interview, you know. But then there became the audience question and answer. And I'm like, you're on your own, Mr. King. Nothing I can do. And finally, when he finished, he turned to me and he said, can we go now? And we did. Poor guy.
That is, I mean, that is the nightmare when you are interviewing someone and you have this question and then they say, yes.
Oh. Because all you're trying to do is send them a volley so that they can tell a funny story to the audience.
Yeah. You have to return the service.
Or you don't have to answer the actual question that you asked. Like, you don't actually care. It's just to try to get something fun for them.
And they're like, yes. No. Yeah. I agree. I'm like, okay, we're going to run out. I hope the audience has a lot of questions.
Well, I should tell everyone that we are old friends, so it's not that hard.
It's not that difficult. But you said you went on this trip because you wanted to find out what was going on in this country, which people sometimes living on the coasts are not aware. You know, they feel like, what the hell just happened? But and there's a character in the book, in fact, who says to Artelis, what if the whole idea of America is wrong? And did you have a sense of that while traveling across and talking to all these people over Bud Light?
Well, that was an idea that for most Americans is forbidden to voice. Like, you can't say, maybe we got it wrong. It was a good try. You know, one of the early tries at democracy, and we kind of didn't do it all perfectly. You're not allowed to say that. It has to be a perfect, best country in the world, no problems, or you're not allowed to stay in America. And I think more and more Americans on both sides probably think that there's something essentially wrong. You know, something essentially wrong with the country that's causing us to break apart. And something done at the beginning, that was a mistake, which is why so few countries have actually adopted the American form of democracy. They went parliamentary instead. But, you know, on my trip, people were really, really sweet to me because we didn't talk about politics. We mostly talked about their children and their jobs and their dreams, and most people's dreams had been dashed, as many are. And what I understood was that they blamed San Franciscans. So I didn't tell people I was from San Francisco.
Well, Nancy Pelosi probably.
Nancy Pelosi,
was
no.
like the Wicked Witch of the West.
I said I was from Washington, D.C., which I was born there, so it was honest.
But did you understand, you know, when people feel that their dreams are dashed, what they want to, I mean, did they see a figure like Trump as someone who would help them recover that dream, or was it more like, I just want someone to burn down the house?
That's a very smart question, and you've got it exactly. Because I think that when you're in terrible trouble and you feel the government isn't going to help you, I feel there's two things you could do. One is search out other people in trouble and help them or try to help each other, or you can just burn the whole thing down. And the people I talked to, they just felt like, I'm suffering, no one's helping me, I want other people to suffer as well, which seems to be a very human thing, and we see it around the world happening all the time.
Absolutely, and it's not something limited to America either.
Not at all.
To bring it back to somewhat more pleasant topics, did you have a dog traveling with, did you have a pug?
I had a pug who died recently, but she did not come on the trip with me. But I thought of her constantly and how ridiculous she would be on the trip. Because I think that's the stupidest kind of dog, and it's my favorite, is the pug. Because it's so human and it's so pointless. It can't do anything. It can't walk up these stairs. You know,
It's like an evolutionary.
It's a complete mistake. It has no
alley.
nose. It snores all night. It's everything you don't want in a spouse. But it's so happy to see you, and it wants to be with you all the time. And it does that. So I thought that would be a funny companion because they're so demanding, and they think that their ideas are always right. And you have to. So I force a pug on him for half the book.
And what was your pug's name?
My pug's name was Olive, and she lived to be 15, which is very old for a pug.
Wow, that is, because they have a lot of health problems usually, don't they? Because
Her only health problem at the end, which I thought was hilarious also, was that she lost her, she got vertigo, so she could only walk in circles. And I know that's probably the point where you should take the dog to the vet, but I thought it was so...
That's the story of many of our lives.
I thought, this is funny. What else is she going to do? It's not like she's running races or making dinner. So I would just watch her walk in circles, and that was fine with me.
She's like a little moon orbiting some unknown planet.
She got in less trouble that way. She had a very limited area, So I just sort of put pads under her, and for about a year.
And she always felt like she was going somewhere.
Yeah, she didn't seem upset. She just liked to be in motion, like many of us.
But exactly. It's not a bad life at all to be going around in small, safe circles in a known environment.
And poop wherever you want. Wouldn't that be nice?
Now, this is not a giveaway for the people who haven't read the book, because you have to read the book. But I was wondering why there was not more sex in the book. Like if you're in a place like Calcutta and you go on one of these apps, people will constantly, the first thing people will ask you is, do you have place? This is the constant refrain. People don't have place. And here is your character, who is like with a mobile place. He's traveling with his place. He's never without place. And yet there's not much sex happening.
There isn't. I have to say, I'm very prudish and puritanical myself. But I do think less had sex if you were paying attention to it. It's not very overt.
Yes.
But he
I said not less sex.
Yeah, but this was less. But he's like in a relationship and he's monogamous. So there's like a little flirtation, and he does in one RV park. He has someone hit on him who is not at all appealing. So I thought, well, that's what happens when you're over 50. It's not everybody you like.
You said you're prudish. Is that why somebody called you a bad gay?
I think so, yeah. Somebody did call me a bad gay. It was because I just didn't write books that were like other books that were on the shelves. They weren't very, I don't know, I think I wasn't towing the line of what I'm supposed to write as a gay writer, so I didn't have a lot of sex in my books, or the gay characters would be not living in a major city, and there wouldn't be a drag queen giving them advice, and so I was, I guess, a bad gay.
And did you meet gay people on your trip?
That was the surprise. I met gay people everywhere. In these tiny towns, there would be like lesbians who ran a panino shop in the middle of Arkansas, and I think I had a lot of preconceptions about these rural parts of America, that I thought all the gay people are in the cities and the people in the other parts are not at all, or repressed. But that wasn't true. There was like a guy who was clearly a drag queen on the weekends. You can always tell from the eyebrows, who was my waiter at a small town in Georgia. He got my number off of my credit card receipt and texted me after that to try to hook up.
Wow, that's an enterprising.
I thought that was very bold and possibly illegal, not very
It
professional.
was probably. Did you tell him that?
No, I said, good luck, I'm on my way somewhere else.
So, what is the wildest thing you've done?
You were saving that until I was feeling really comfortable. I don't know the wild. I mean, it all depends on what wild is.
I don't know. Whatever in your book is wild.
You mean what did I do in the book that was
No,
wild?
not in the book.
I mean, I think I'm a very buttoned up person. And so for me, wild, coming to Kolkata is not wild. But something like jumping out of a plane would be. I think the wildest thing is, the thing that's hardest for me is meeting strangers. And so I think the wildest thing I've done is I go to a festival in the desert, Burning Man it's called, where it's all strangers and you meet them.
And many of them are naked.
They are naked, and sometimes you're naked, and like it's a sort of no barrier event, and I really like my barriers. So that's something I did that was the greatest challenge, maybe.
They're out of your comfort zone.
Definitely out of my comfort zone. You get like a weird nickname, like it's super.
What was your nickname?
Scout.
Scout.
Yeah.
Like Scout's honor.
Like
Scout.
Scout's honor. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I wore a Scout's uniform.
Ah, okay. And speaking of, you were talking about, he's a man over 50. This is as much sex as he can look forward to right
Not
now.
true.
But
Not true.
Not,
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah.
But that reminded me. Have you, though it's not over 50, did you watch the series Uncoupled with Neil Patrick Harris?
No, I'm really curious about it because it's
over. I think he's like over 45 or something.
something like that. It seemed like it touched on some of the things I
Except
wrote
I
about.
think, I was curious to know what you thought about it because I was watching it and thinking that, like, the whole point of this is that when you're exploring the ideas of gayness and aging, is that at a certain point people start feeling invisible. You walk, but because it's Neil Patrick Harris, every episode somebody is hitting on him. It might be a sexual misadventure, but there's no shortage of sex literally falling at his feet all the time.
I mean, I think that's, if you work at it, that's probably true in your life. And I think, but I was thinking the other day that I was like, I wonder when the last time someone hit on me, but I think it's because one way I've decided to be gay over 50 is to dress really ridiculously. Like, not to dress sexy anymore, but just to wear, I mean, this is more normal, but like the pants are weird. And like it's not attractive, but it's, I think it's me, I think it's funnier. And I think that I don't get hit on because of my pants.
Well, we'll see after the event.
Okay, let's see how it goes.
We'll see what Calcutta has to. But it's true. There's nothing scarier than the 45-year-old, 50 man who is still trying to squeeze into that Lycra club outfit from 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
that's what we have decided not to do. Is to try to be the same guy, and because in my mind I'm always trying to. Of course, I don't see myself as over 50. Like we think we're whatever 25, and but I'm aware other people don't. So I try to picture in my mind, because the mirror doesn't help, what I actually look like, and realize that's who people are meeting. But it happens a lot of the time that you meet someone who you think is like a really old man, and you think, "Hello, sir, how are you doing?" And they're younger than you. And you realize that's what I'm a sir. I'm a sir now.
Yes, you're a sir now. And in Bengal, there is other thing. There's actually a word for uncle called kaku. And people use that kind of somewhat derisively about like, oh, you've become such a kaku, as in like an uncle. And then you suddenly realize, oh my God, I am the kaku now.
Oh
in
my
this
God, now I will know that
conversation.
I'm become a kaku.
You can become a kaku.
That's better than daddy, which I'm not a daddy.
Oh, that's the other thing. You can be scout kaku.
Scout the kaku.
But one of the lovely things about this book, I mean, the descriptions of America, traveling across America, are truly beautiful. And I just so enjoyed, this of the cactus and the donut shops, and I could really picture it. But the other thing I found moving about the book is that it's actually also a book about love. And I'll quote, it's about the ordinariness of love. Because you say, when the hazy spell of early love has faded, but most of the mist of disillusionment has not settled over them. And a lot is written about that hazy spell, falling in love. And there's a lot of literature that's possible about falling out of love and heartbreak. But that sort of in-between place, where it's love, but it's also a deep like. Maybe it's loyalty, or maybe it's like old jeans. I don't know. Is that, how was that for you as a writer to deal with that, go into that territory?
Well, it's forced upon me by writing a sequel where the first one is about sort of the realization of love by the end of it. And so this one, I was like, okay, they're in a couple, so now what? But I thought exactly about what you're saying, that it's the part that's easy to miss because it's easy to be with one another and it's fun, but it's not as sexy and it's not as adventurous of let's go to skiing tomorrow and go to the beach the next, like let's do new things together. Instead, there's a pattern. And maybe that's the best part. It's possible. During the pandemic, I was with my boyfriend in Milan, where we were trapped for 3 years in an apartment together with a different dog, a very large, timid dog. And I was working on my novel, and we weren't allowed to leave. And we had food delivered, and we never saw anyone else. And we just watched Netflix, like many, 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 many people. And I did turn to him one day, and I said, this is awful. It's the end of the world, but it might be one of the happiest times of my life. Because I thought this part of love is really nice. It's even, and there's still like excitement about the other person and making them coffee in the morning, and there's no resentment yet, and you're not bored. So, well, that's over. I'm gone. I'm out in the world. But it made me think about it, and that made it into the book.
I want to open this up for questions. So we already have a question. I was going to say, while you think of your question, let me ask you a question, but you have a question, so go for it.
Hello, Andrew. I
Hello.
am Himel. So my question to you was, what is the process in which mechanism you make your story? Like you meet people, you get the characters out of them from real life, and how do you process that? I mean, do you write the line and then the book demands the stories out of you, or is there a mechanism?
It's a very good question. I don't know if I have a great answer. What I do is I have a little notebook. I have it in here where I take down the details of everything, because if I write down, I don't need their conversation or really their life story. What I need is their hair and their glasses, and their, even better is gestures, or like they're missing an arm or something like that, something I wouldn't expect. And so I write that down everywhere I go, everything I see. And I try to pay attention the way one does when you're in a foreign country, or if you're at like your in-laws' dinner table, the way you're just really attentive, and later I look at and then what I do? I sit down and I think, how am I going to tell this story to my friends at the end of the day in a way that's funny? Because I usually meet my friends at a bar at the end of the day, and I think how I trust myself to process it. So actually, I end up not taking the people or their personalities usually at all. And all the stories people told me, I didn't use any of them. It's not really fair to them. I did tell them I was a writer, but I didn't tell them I was going to make them characters in a best-selling book. That's not really nice. But I stole their hair and their missing arm. and that kind of thing. And that starts to be the funny story.
And do you find that, I tried this at one point when I was doing a reporting gig where I would take pictures, but then later I realized that it was completely useless. When I looked at the pictures, I didn't know what to look for anymore.
It's absolutely true. I used to do that a lot. I would make films and things, and they're not useful because
It's too much.
It's too much. Only the human mind pays attention, and if you look at the picture, like this picture is really beautiful, but it's not useful for a novel. I have to look really carefully at the people in the audience.
And say like, oh, there's a shiny
There's
pink
a very
package,
shiny pink package. There's at least 5 women holding their purses very closely like this on their laps. That's what's interesting. People are interesting to me.
Next question.
Hi, Shuman here. So I just
Hi,
wanted.
Shuman.
Hi. So that in US, especially in South and Central, they have this all kind of crazy conventions like Trump conventions, then these Christian conventions where everyone seems like drugged and disillusioned. So did you come across any of such conventions or any experience of it?
Did I come back with...
No, sorry, what conventions?
No, so they have all these crazy conventions like Trump conventions
Yes.
or these Christian conventions where they talk all about this, disillusion things, and they are living in bubbles. So did you come across any of those while even traveling?
Yeah, when I did stay away from trying to talk politics too much or to see those things because I have preformed opinions about them that would not be changed by being present at them. And that's what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to get out of my preformed opinions. But I did go to very right-wing places, which would be country music clubs and like shrimp festivals in the South. A shrimp festival doesn't sound right-wing, but it was. But this was also before. It was just before Trump was president that I did my first trip, so it wasn't quite as crazy yet. I think now I would write a different book if I went down with what I'd see. But so I haven't seen those. I haven't seen those huge rallies of thousands and thousands of people, sort of neo-Nazi experience. No.
But did anything make you think that, oh, I've been living in a bubble in San Francisco?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I do live in a bubble. And they clearly do too, and I thought, well, I can't change them. All I can do is change me. All I can do is have empathy for these people I'm meeting. I would go to like redneck bars, very rural places, and just learn people's lives. And I thought, well, at least I'll understand. I don't know. I'm not asking how they voted, but I'll understand their lives a little.
And nobody had a problem with you being gay?
No, but I was I'm not a very threatening presence. I especially in my outfit. And I bought everyone a Bud Light.
There you go.
So
That
who's going to
always
get rid
works.
of that guy? Yeah.
Next question. Yeah, sure.
Andrew, I remember, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember your earlier sort of exchange that you did in Allen Park very vividly, and then I read your book, which I loved. I can't wait to get around to the sequel. There was a sense of melancholy in the book as well. A lot of people said it was very funny, but there was something sad. I'm looking for a word that's more profound, but I can't quite get it. I think Shondeep was trying to allude to it en passant when he was talking about the quotidian, the melancholy of the quotidian, if you will. So do you decide on the mood before you embark on the novel, or does it emerge after a couple of drafts, perhaps?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I have the answer. I think the poignant is the word I often use for myself when I get into a mood that I can't quite describe why I'm feeling a little wistful but not unhappy. I think it naturally goes into the books also because I've had people tell me they didn't think the books were funny at all, that they really loved them, but they thought they were really sad and moving. And I think that's a great way of reading them because it's the same thing. I'm making fun of things that are really upsetting to me. The idea of not just of growing old, but of knowing that we don't know how to grow old because the generation of gay men above me, we lost that generation to AIDS. That's one of the saddest things I've ever known. But therefore, it's a source of comedy. Therefore, here we are not knowing how to grow old, which is kind of funny. Like everyone else knows how. So, and this one, the saddest thing I could think of was my country coming apart. And it breaks my heart, you know? And therefore, it has to be a source of comedy also. You decide to laugh at it. Until you can't laugh anymore, maybe. So I think that's why it is, and I feel that way about love. Of course, it's grief necessarily, and about dogs, it's grief. When you sign up for a dog, you sign up for grief, and it's the same with love, but you go with it anyway because it's worth it. So they're hand in hand. I'm glad you felt that. I think that's there. Oh, this poor woman next to you.
Hi, Andrew. Welcome to Calcutta.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah. Andrew, what are some of the themes which you'd still want to explore in your future writings? Maybe which you would feel might fetch you another Pulitzer, maybe?
What could you get
Let's
for
get another
Pulitzer?
Pulitzer. What do I have to do for another Pulitzer? No one should get 2 Pulitzers. Colson Whitehead deserved them, but no one else. Well, I mean, what I'm working on now is it's a book that's set in Italy, where I've been living for a while, and I don't know what I'm exploring until I start writing it, and then I write about what I'm definitely worried about. It seems to be death, unfortunately, but you know, everyone thinks about death. But I've sort of come across it. All of us have come across it the last couple of years. But now I'm at an age where people's parents die or people I know get sick. But death in a funny way, because it is funny. You know, I think Less is Lost starts with a funeral that I think is sort of funny.
It's a hilarious funeral.
Good.
Well, yeah, it's a hilarious funeral.
Because it's so fraught, you're so worried that when something goes wrong, it's hilarious because it's supposed to go perfectly and it can't.
Also, because in America, you know, you don't say funeral, you always want it to be a celebration of someone's life, and someone does show up at this funeral thinking it's a real celebration.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
There was you had your hand up for a long time, so if you could get the question to her.
Hi, Andrew. First of all, sincere apologies for I have not read your book yet.
That's okay.
Okay. I wanted to ask one question that, do you think winning the Pulitzer has resonated through you and your experiences and affected your writing in some way? You are writing the sequel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think now, since you have had a really academic prize, do you think that will resonate through your writing and it will more of a fan service, or are you still writing for your own?
Well, has the prize influenced my writing? Yeah. Or I'm writing for myself. I think I was answering this before about that I'm still writing for myself. But it was hard to find out how to do it again because I was no longer... it's usually best for me to write when I think that nobody cares, I'm a failure, I might as well do anything. And then when you're a success, it's hard to recreate not being a success.
So somehow
Go ahead.
It sounds good.
So somehow everybody watching you right now has somehow affected your writing. You will say that, suppose.
Oh, like everybody's now because now they're watching Andrew Sean Greer, Pulitzer winner, is writing. What is he writing?
Well, I will. Yes, they do. Also because of social media. I mean, I've been a writer for a very long time before social media, before the internet, kind of. And now people write to me on Instagram every day. I know people are coming to Kolkata to see me because they wrote me on Instagram. And so they give me instant reactions to what I'm writing, which is not the way it used to be for writers. It's really nice. It's like writing for the theater or something. You get applause. But you also are very aware of people's feelings about your work. And if you can Google yourself, and it's a terrible idea.
Do you do that?
I was snubbed sometimes.
Well, we're actually out of time almost, but I'll leave with, since we talked so much about love, I'll throw one last question at you. What is the most romantic thing that you've done or someone's done for you?
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, I feel like I did something really romantic recently for Enrico.
You forgot.
But now I've forgotten what it was. Well, the most romantic thing he did for me was that I could not be with my family for Christmas this year, and he did not want to be with his family. And so I said, oh, we'll just have Christmas at home in Milan. And instead, he produced tickets to my favorite amusement park nearby, which was empty. So we went there, just the two of us in Santa Claus hats on Christmas, and rode all the roller coasters. And he knew I loved that. And there's no one else who likes that, just me.
On that note, thank you so much for joining, and thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Sandip.
He'll be signing books, right? Yeah. So he'll be at the bookshop signing books, so you can get your copy signed there.